Welcome to the IM Tech Meetup. This is a sponsored event by Content.ai. And today we're going to be talking about ChatGPT and AI. So we've got great speakers today, and we can get started in a bit. So just a little bit about the IM Tech Meetup. So who am I? I am Ilesh Mistry. I'm a senior front-end engineer at MMT and a Content.ai MVP. You can get my contact details on the right-hand side. There's a QR code and available on all the usual channels like Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, etc. The IM Tech Meetup is generally focused on front-end topics, but there's loads of things out there right now that come into play. And if you want to hear about future meetups or sponsor or join and talk at Meetup, then get in touch and we can see how you can get involved. A little bit about the sponsors, Content.ai. They basically have the CMS that enables organizations to deal with the content and allow for any sort of channels to be represented. You can use their QR codes on the right-hand side to kind of join their various channels and register for free trials, etc. They are recruiting, as quite a few people are these days. So if you're interested in moving on to a new role, you can use their details there as well. Before we get into sort of like the topics, if you've got a question during the sessions, just add them in the chat and we'll pick them up at the end of each session. As you're probably aware, we are recording these sessions, so should you need to leave at a certain point, don't worry, we'll share the recording at a later point on YouTube. And if you can, it would be greatly appreciated to kind of share this on social media, so that would be cool. And one final thing is if you want to be up for winning some swag, then you can do that here. So basically, if you want any of this stuff like the water bottle, etc., then the QR code's on the right-hand side for you to join into. But don't worry, like I'll be circulating those links again throughout the different sessions as well. So we can pretty much get started. Today's agenda is going to be focusing on myself talking about AI. It's not just ChatGPT. Then we've got Pete after that on help before we knew we need it. And then we got Yiğit. We're talking about how to use Google Sheets effectively for OpenAI embeddings in ChatGPT. And what we don't have, unfortunately, is Brian. He's off sick. So we wish him well and hopefully he could join us in a future event. So let's get started. So I'm just going to swap screens. Okay, so share my screen. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen on there, and I'll start my presentation. So welcome to my topic regarding AI is not just chatbot, and just a little bit, obviously, if you missed the early part of that session, part of it is I'm Ilesh Mistry. I'm the founder and organization of the IM Tech Meetup. I'm a senior front-end engineer at MMT and a content area MVP. You can get hold of me in various channels there. So I'm going to be talking about today, AI is not just ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is basically a lot of people, pretty much everyone is talking about it. And if they're not, then they're aware of something around there. You know, I could just talk about like my friends. I was speaking to them the other day, and one of them was, hearing a conversation. He goes, "Oh, you're talking about this chat thing?" And they know something is out there, but they haven't used it. And then there's other people out there who've actually, only really asked one or two questions and then left it alone. So they probably don't know how powerful it can be and can be used. And it's quite useful for them to kind of just at least be aware of what's there and what can be achieved with that. So my talk is going to be really aimed for like ChatGPT and AI beginners. I want to try and kind of introduce this to a level to people out there who may not have experienced this kind of stuff, and try and put in my learnings and things like that inside this, so then people can take that away as well. Obviously, with everything, it's better to kind of do your own research as well. Seek advice from the experts, and some of these are on the sessions today as well, and stay up to date with the developments, because if we stand still, there's so many things going on out there. So what is AI? So pretty much, it's a artificial intelligence, allows sort of like the abilities for machines and computers to kind of perform tasks that we would normally expect human intervention or humans to kind of do, but utilizing that sort of intelligence from the human side to kind of perform those behaviors. The other aspects of it is the fact that you've got algorithms and statistics behind everything that you can kind of do within the AI sector. And what it does allow you to do is use, or what it does do is it uses the vast amount of knowledge and resource and everything that's out there, and build, have it all together and produce something from that. So it's a massive sort of, if you think about it, a massive database of content and data that's in there that can do something with it. There's different types of AI. You've got machine learning, deep learning, robotics. So there's, as you can imagine, it's not just like one thing you can categorize and then you'll be sort of like, okay, this is what AI is. And you get so many sort of already, real world examples of self-driving cars, image and voice recognition, lots of stuff like medical diagnosis as well. So, AI is obviously going to be, it's massive, and it could be used for lots of things like problem solving as well. So, a question might come to everyone is the fact that why AI? I guess the key thing here is that AI sort of matters in the way, so it's something that's going to be used in various industries, and it's tools to allow sort of innovations and progression, to solve complex problems that maybe via somebody solving, like a human trying to solve something, it takes out some of the tedious tasks out there that it could be used to resolve and solve problems out there, and improving sort of communication, helping us perform our tasks faster, and really sort of like enabling us to kind of perform what we can do, but in a faster way and more. Sometimes like it could be the case that we want to find some data, and it's so much easier to kind of have something there that already has found this for you. So AI obviously covers a lot of things, but the other aspect of AI is that there is something called ChatGPT, and if you're not aware of it, it's a language model developed by OpenAI, and it stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which uses a neural network architecture that performs language generation operations and capabilities. So you kind of ask it a question, and then it comes back with responses according to what that question is, and then it kind of works quite in a learning way, in a sense that you could add further questions to the questions that you've asked. So it's almost like it's a bit different to what you would expect a Google Home or an Alexa would normally do, where they're kind of trained to kind of give you responses according to specific questions only. And ChatGPT is like massive in a sense that it's got access, or has been trained to have access to lots of data, books, articles out there, which means that its knowledge is way what you would expect. And I think it's caused a massive impression on everyone out there. So the popularity, as I mentioned a little bit about, is I would say it's probably like one that if anybody talks about AI, that's the thing that they'll mention. And in particular, like I mentioned, the responses side of things. So, it works a lot better than your sort of normal chatbots that you have out there. It's it's obviously trained on lots of data out there, and it's continually improving and learning. And that's the thing about it, is the fact that with AI, it's not just a case of you've got some data and that's it. It's more of a case of it's going to be evolving and learning and moving on, etc. And it's one of those ones that currently have been really popular, but I'm sure there'll be sort of like competitors out there like Google Bars and other ones out there. But it's going to be probably there for a long time to come, I think. So ChatGPT for me, it works. It doesn't work as well for real time, and I'm talking about the free version. Obviously, if you're paying for the subscription version, then you'll probably get different data. But I just did a few tests. So one of those was, who does Cristiano Ronaldo play for? And it basically had enough knowledge, but it couldn't get past a certain point because it was trained to have enough data by a certain time. Obviously, talking about the free version here, but it couldn't figure that out. So, if you're not aware, Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the famous footballers in the world, and he currently plays for Al Nassr. Similarly to things that are happening like real time. So, for example, who was a winner of the UK version of The Apprentice 2023? And again, because of the cutoff side of things, it wouldn't be able to kind of answer that. And similarly, other questions coming out from that. You can obviously train ChatGPT to learn the correct answer, but something that we've learned from other sessions as well is the fact that if you train it, you can also train it to have a wrong answer as well. So just bear that in mind, that there's things here where you can try and train something, but then you can also train it to not provide the right answer as well. I feel, for me personally, ChatGPT is a problem solver. And in particular, especially in, say, the developer, software engineer sort of life cycle, it allows us to kind of resolve some bugs that we can see possible in issues with some syntax and refactoring and code samples as well. So I think it depends on your field and where you use it and how you use it. And, the key thing here is the fact that all of this comes with a caveat that you've got to be responsible for what you use from anything, whether it's ChatGPT or AI, that gets provided out there. So, there's like I mentioned, there's lots of cases out there that you can use it on. So you can use it on recipes. I've asked it to give me a presentation brief before. Also helping resolve what something means. So there's lots of things out there. And if you haven't used ChatGPT, please go and try it out and have a look at what it can give you, because you'll probably be really impressed. So going back to the sort of topic of, AI is not just ChatGPT. If you're new to AI, then you probably need to kind of like look around at the things, spaces out there. There's so many things that involve AI now, and it's really one of the things that people are talking about, and buzz cases, etc. So if we think about it, like AI is not just going to be like ChatGPT. So let's look at some of the examples that could have you could use AI or have been used AI in the different industries. So, for example, one example could be used in healthcare. So you could basically, there's disease diagnosis, identification, there's monitoring of patients. You could basically almost consult particular cases and diagnosis without actually speaking to someone. Potentially even like develop the drugs and provide analysis. And if you imagine, all of this stuff is sometimes more of a case that what we tend to use is more human interaction. A lot of these sort of like things that could be kind of and have been in some cases taken over by AI. Similarly, in agriculture, you could probably see AI happening in certain cases here where the crop monitoring of crop and growth patterns and management of crop, almost seeing like how particular sort of animal health is as well, like being able to kind of control, or not control, but have a monitor and sensors around that. So you can then try and diagnose if something or some animal is actually going to be deteriorating in health. There's other things where you can try and identify potential crop diseases and pests, so then you can try and work around that. So it's all about sort of enabling us to be a more reactive and proactive, really, to situations that could happen in different fields, in this case agriculture. Similarly with transportation, again, data is not fully accurate there, but what we're trying to show here is the fact that there's a lot of AI already in lots of things here. Like we've got autonomous vehicles, route optimization, traffic control, smart infrastructures. So a lot of things out there, and these are just some of the sort of industries that have AI, or looking at AI into lots of things that they can kind of enhance their capabilities with. So, those sort of industries I've just touched on are just a few. There's a lot of industries out there, a lot of sectors, finance, other areas, human resources, etc. Like there's lots of things that we could probably use AI for. And, it may be a couple of factors why some cases that the adoption of AI has actually been a little bit slower than what we can see in some industries. So there are sort of limitations and considerations that we have to kind of think about when it comes to AI. And it comes to a point where people probably want to be thinking before they embark on like new technologies and innovations out there. Some of these are, ethical concerns. So bias and discrimination. Sometimes the AI algorithms, they can't sort of like, determine between different types of things and different types of data. And that can cause concerns. And there's privacy as well. If they collect lots of data, what would happen with some of the data that shouldn't be exposed outside? And accountability as well. Like, there could be an autonomous vehicle that's actually driving along, but then who is responsible if an accident happens in that case as well? So there's a lot of things to consider, not just a case of AI is cool and then just use it. It's more of a case of there's lots of things or reasons why people are not adopting it as soon as they should be or could be. And there's other things as well, like so a lot of people are concerned about their jobs. There could be the case where, a lot of the tasks that are performed could be sort of driven or taken away and used through AI. Transparency as well, like sometimes it's kind of difficult to understand certain conclusions and problem areas of healthcare, because it could be the case that you don't know what's going on with that. And then also like autonomous weapons, the development of autonomous weapons raises serious ethical questions about the role of machines in warfare as well. Like there could be lots of areas where we've got to just be careful that AI could be used, but there's a lot of reasons why it isn't just yet, or lots of considerations that the industries are looking at before they put them into place. So one of the big things that I find like with AI as well is the fact that, understanding what an AI does compared to, say, somebody that you would probably be dealing with human interaction with, is always a case where, sometimes, there's lots of different sectors. And I think I saw a video the other day where someone was in, a teacher, for example, and they asked the question, how could AI replace your job? And there's a lot of things on there where you can kind of say, okay, yes, they can in this aspect, but they probably could in another. And contextual understanding is hard, because normally the case is that you need like almost think about a therapist or something who would basically have lots of conversations with you, whereas AI would probably not know that information. So that's where you could have a difference of where AI probably may struggle with kind of the situation there. creativity as well. Like, I'll probably show an example later on, but you know, creating something. So let's say creating a web page or something. They probably won't know about your brand, what you're kind of achieving, the history behind what you're trying to achieve, and then trying to kind of create something from that might be a bit more of a struggle as well. Similarly, like, just sort of like ethics and morality and, common sense reasoning, things like that, they basically, the limitations highlight the importance of human supervision. It's very important to kind of just think that, AI can't do everything and without sort of like some sort of human intervention. So where do I think, or where could the AI future kind of go? There's lots of sort of like suggestions out there where it'll be like continued in advance in deep learning, trying to focus more into that area. Personalization is already there, but it allows us to be a little bit more AI driven, because you can then do things a lot more than seeing recommended blog posts that are on a particular page. It would be a lot more sort of tailored to specific industries and individuals. There's also obviously better sort of use and greater use in healthcare that could be also be looked into, and then obviously the Internet of Things as well. One of the big things obviously is if they can improve the ethical and responsible use, it can go a lot more further than it is currently doing at the moment. And as with anything, it's important to ensure the AI is developed and used in the right way going forward. So, sometimes, I touched on this before, but the potential impact of AI on the job market. One of the things that I feel is really important is the fact that AI is there, but what we can do is obviously join with that rather than actually looking at some particular roles that could be replaced. So automation is always something that we consider as sort of like software engineers, but there's always other areas and industries where you probably think, okay, like, can I automate this to kind of make something faster? So this is where some cases it would be something that would help your job rather than replace your job. There are also obviously some jobs out there that will allow, or with AI coming into place, you might get more jobs out there that would be more focused towards AI, which would mean that you can kind of focus in that area. Some cases could be also involve that you upskilling to remain sort of competitive to be with the AI industry. And like with automation, it increases in efficiency as well. So there could be areas that you could see that isn't performing as well within the business or within your job that you can kind of use to kind of improve efficiency as well. So, potential impact of AI on the job market, it's one of those things that, as humans, it probably be the case of what we want to be trying to do is making sure that we can kind of work with AI rather than against it. And that would probably give us better results. So I'm going to conclude quite soon. So my sort of main takeaways on this is there's many sort of AI applications beyond chatbots, and you can also use it in various sort of industries, and we've probably seen lots of industries out there using it as well. Sometimes you could get some limitations in the sense of accuracy and ethical concerns, etc., on the data that you may get received from AI. As we are aware that AI is not going to stand still. There are lots of things happening, whether that's to your jobs or to developments out there or things that you're trying to introduce and use within your everyday lives. Important always to kind of like stay in touch with what's going on, because like I mentioned earlier, it's not standing still. I look around and I think, okay, I didn't even know there's another application AI tool out there that does something else. and get on board as soon as you can, or whenever you can. You might find that actually, writing an email, for example, you might want something out there that might actually further enhance your productivity in doing that as well. Excuse me. So I want to thank AI for this presentation, because I basically wanted to try this out, but the slide deck was pretty much created heavily by AI. I would say probably about 80 to 85%. So the presentation, slides, structures, the images, the templates, all from an application called Dector Plus. And content within that was, again, Dector Plus, ChatGPT, and Notion AI. Obviously, I did put in my stuff in there, so to add some adjustments and my point of view. But I wanted to really try this out and see, okay, like, could I create a presentation that I could just, get somebody, I could get AI to kind of create for me without minimum human intervention. And I'm hoping this has actually proved quite a success. Personally, it's super scary to know what you can do these days with AI. And it's important to obviously embrace what we have, and think about AI as enablers to what we can achieve, but also adding our thoughts and adjustments on top. So knowing that Brian was going to be off, I've added another couple of slides here, very quick ones, to just show what different types of applications are out there. And thanks and credits to the community out there, including Pete, who's going to be speaking next as well. So what are the tools out there? And I just picked a handful out. One is Dector Plus, which is what I used for my slide creation. Just typed in what I wanted to kind of talk about, and it created a bunch of slides for me. Obviously, I had to kind of refine what I needed on there, but it created my presentation for me. So I'll check it out. Notion AI, obviously, Notion AI just is more of a sort of like making tool, but you can create blog posts and brainstorm ideas and lots of stuff, like even just summaries of text that you can use and say, okay, give me an idea of how to write this. There's also a sort of meeting transcriber. So literally the case, we have lots of online meetings at the moment, ways to kind of allow you to kind of transcribe that. Durable, this was something I found quite interesting, was the fact that you could build a website in 30 seconds. If I'm honest, I was very impressed with the fact that you can do it in 30 seconds, but it might not look the best, but it was very impressive to kind of see that you can build a website in 30 seconds, and there you go, you can probably start using it. The other one is stock image AI, so very similar to DALL-E 2, but basically another way of creating stock images by typing in what you want, and then it'll kind of deliver and give you an image out there. There's also creative suites out there that allows you to kind of put all in one thing. There's also design and templates, so something I spoke about earlier, which is the fact that having the vision of creating sort of like designs and templates out there. You've got something here that could do that. Compose, it's a Chrome extension that cuts writing time. So literally, you can see the example there. It might be a bit quick on the screen, but don't worry, I'll share the slide link in a bit. But you can see that it's going to speed up productivity by writing something in, almost predicting what you're going to write. There's also copywriting tools out there, simplified. And another thing that's something that I saw the other day was, alternatives to ChatGPT. So, ChatGPT, especially the sort of version that everyone has access to compared to the other version, can be sometimes a bit restrictive, but this is an alternative out there that you could use. You could also create songs. So, if you literally wanted to kind of write some music, you can create your own song from that. And if anyone's looking to sort of apply, they can create the resumes. Because like for me, I've never, not really wrote a CV for how many years, but it's a great sort of like way to kind of write a CV. And not finally, there's a couple of things out there for sort of like the people that use Excel. You can create the formulas from AI. And then finally, if you're a developer, which I am, there's another tool out there that would allow you to kind of, build your code faster and, use code completions, almost similar to what we may have in sort of plugins, but, something there out there that would actually assist software developers. So I just want to say thank you, to listening to my presentation. My details are there on the side, and I'll probably send a link in so you can have a link to the slides there. But I'm open for any questions. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to have a look through. If you've got any questions, just fire them in the chat. I think, and obviously Pete's put on the Excel formula bot has to be the best use case of AI ever. Okay, that's brilliant. So, I've not used it, but see Pete's used that as well. Given the sponsor. Good question from Liam. So Liam basically asked the sponsor content.ai in its name. Does it make use of AI currently? Are there plans for the future? Yes, obviously I'm not from content AI, but I could probably say that the best answer I could probably give you for now is yes, there's probably something coming out, but I'd rather the vendors actually say more about that. Jonathan's asked, did you use stock AI for the image in the presentation? So good question. I believe if I have a look at my deck, it was basically using, let's just have a look. It was using, let's go to it. So for this one, it was using Unsplash, but the tool that I'm using here, and I can probably just bring that across so that people can see, is very cool in the sense that you can just go and select an image, write in what you normally expect when you're searching for images, and find what you want in there. So for example, robots, and hit search. It'll do exactly what you would expect a sort of image or DAM sort of type plugin to do, but in this case, looking for like free images that you can kind of utilize and do. A good question. Christian's asked, how big is the threat of AI in replacing jobs? Personally, I think it depends on the job and industry that you're in. Obviously, I'm no expert in this field, but I think you've got to kind of think about the industry and job that you're doing, whether something like that could obviously be achieved through AI, and how your job would be different to that, for example. So, most cases, hopefully, it would be the case that it won't be as bad. But again, I'm no expert in this field, so the threat is probably there because anything's a threat, right? So the current climate is a threat at the moment, but it just depends on, I guess, the job. And there you go. Pete can answer some of those questions next. So he's got that nailed in the bag for me. That's awesome. Thank you. I think that is it from my side. I just want to thank you everyone for listening to my presentation. I will send the sort of slide deck link in the chat so you can kind of catch up on it if needed, and any of the social links. But thank you for obviously listening to my presentation, and it will be over to Pete, who's next. So just let us know when you're ready, Pete. So I think it's the typical thing that you're on mute.
I knew I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. I just need to. Hold on. Thank you for that. I am probably going to compliment your presentation quite heavily, which is good. I'm going to go a little bit deeper on some of those topics you covered. thanks very much for inviting me to talk to you. By the end of this presentation, I will explain to you what the bear relevance is, and why in some of the build up to this conversation, I've been talking about bears, and why I'm talking to our clients at MMT quite a lot about bears and these particular types of bear. And I will let you know right at the end. But if anybody can guess during the conversation the relevance of these particular bears, put it in the chat and we'll see if somebody can guess. So my name is Pete Trainor. I'm the product strategy partner at MMT. My career in AI and data generated product began back in 1997, weirdly. I was part of a early VR development company, which was kind of crazy. We were doing some really fascinating stuff. I worked with this incredible data scientist called Chris Booth, who was using stochastic models to generate flight simulator data and scenarios for the military. And it was the first time I think I'd really seen what we are considering now to be this kind of magic, this AI thing that everybody's talking about. And it was quite remarkable seeing some of the stuff that they could do algorithmically even back then. The biggest problem we had in 97 was the dial-up connections couldn't do a huge amount in terms of data transfer, so that kind of gazumped us quite heavily. The back end of my career, so the last kind of 12 years or so, has been really fascinating, and that's, I guess, what qualifies me to come and have this conversation with you today. I became the AI and product director for a music company in 2008 called Mflow. We were using algorithms to match people to taste. And we were doing some really interesting stuff with generated playlists and really trying to make sure that people's music libraries were tagged correctly so you could get people to their preferences. We had a wonderful development team. It was quite spectacular. And then halfway through our launch, Spotify appeared and gave their service away for free. So they sunk us. And over the subsequent couple of years, I've done lots of jobs that revolve around design and consulting to clients around AI and data-led product. Now, what I've also done, which I've highlighted in the middle of the back end of this slide, which is why I can answer some of the questions later about ethics stuff, is for a while I was the chair of the BEMA AI think tank, the British Interactive Media Association's think tank. They deemed me important enough for some weird reason to make me the chair, and it was really fascinating. We went into government, we did a lot of work with the APPG on AI, so the All Parliamentary Party Group, cross-party groups on AI and ethics. Had a lot of very, very fascinating conversations with academics. And I got much more into, I guess, the kind of the academic side of AI during that period of time. I also led the first kind of product team looking at AI for support and lending and credit for NatWest for a couple of years as well, which was really fascinating. Now, the other thing that's amazing about that particular part of my career, and then I'll move on to some interesting stuff, is we were working very heavily with IBM Watson in 2013 on natural language processing, and it was fairly cutting edge. It was right on the edge of, magic. And I'm going to be honest with you, we did not predict that things would move quite as quickly as they have. So when we were setting up that team at NatWest in 2013, 14, we were getting NatWest ready for about 2025 on generative natural language work. So it's happened about 2 years ahead of our predictions, which was working with some really clever AI academic people as well. Just to kind of echo what's already been talked about, like there's a textbook definition of AI. It's about software acquiring and applying knowledge and thinking and behaving. I've actually been going out and just speaking to the clients in a much more simpler way. So on the screen right there, you can see that's my statement. That's what I say to our clients when they're asking us what the heck this stuff is and whether they should be scared of it. It's just the optimization and automation of software and robotics to a certain extent. I've done some really interesting stuff with robotics. There is a TED talk online that I did in 2019, which is a case study of a really amazing robot. I'm not going to talk about it today, but it's a wonderful case study, which I'm really proud of. So go find that. Robotics I find particularly fascinating because it cuts through multiple vertices of the AI sector, smart technology sector. Really brilliant stuff. So I'm fascinated by the whole space in robotics. That's the bit that terrifies me more than software, if I'm honest. And the other thing I've been doing is using this case study. Can you all unmute and just tell me what you think you're seeing on the screen right now? Just shout it out. Anybody?
Objects.
Yeah. Do you know what it is that's been 3D printed?
Building fasteners.
Pretty close. Pretty close. So this is from Denmark. It's a couple of years old now, actually, this example. On my left-hand side, so you're right, the big fat sort of average looking thing. It's a cable tie. It holds cables above a crossroads in Copenhagen, used to. The engineering company, whose name I forget, they thought it would be fun to feed data that they'd collected from some sensors that they hung on that particular one on the left-hand side, the big ugly one. They fit some sensors and then they fed that to an algorithm who 3D printed the one in the middle. So the one in the middle came almost generatively from a machine interpreting the data and then saying, actually, you know, we can hold, it can hold more cables above the road if it did this, and it sort of generated this weird squidgy thing. They then waited kind of 6 or 7 months, recalibrated the data, and then it printed the little tiny one on the far side, the little nasty squidgy looking thing that looks melted. It does exactly the same job. It holds 3 times as much weight as the one that was originally designed by people. And it's just a kind of, for me, that's just a really interesting example of technology optimizing something fairly rudimentary. Now, it doesn't look as, it looks a bit weird, right? But this is because machines interpret data in a very different way than people. They go for the shortest possible path, and they're not really bothered about the aesthetic. But I think if we're talking to clients or you're kind of trying to get your head around what this kind of technology is really good for, it's just really good at optimizing stuff, be that process or whatever. Just really quickly, and again, I like talking about this particular stuff because I think it grounds us in a certain amount of reality. Artificial intelligence as a discipline area, as an entity, as a industry, has been around for an incredibly long time. So Warren McCulloch and Walter Pitts wrote a paper about the kind of mathematical theory of machines that could think way back in 43. And the paper is still online. It's fairly accessible. It's a bit thick and dense, but it's, you know, it's a relatively accessible paper. You could probably ask ChatGPT to summarize it for you and it will give you the best bits. But it's been around as a concept for a long, long time. John McCarthy and a bunch of white dudes, because it's always white dudes, which is one of the problems with AI, relevant when we get through the talk, came up with the term AI in the mid-50s at Dartmouth College in Massachusetts. Client of ours at MMT, actually, Dartford College. And they came up with this idea of if a machine could do 7 things, it would be deemed artificially intelligent. So they coined the phrase artificial intelligence. The nearest neighbor algorithm that was the mid-60s was an algorithm that was designed to help traveling salespeople get around neighborhoods quicker. So it's for Tupperware salespeople and the Avon people to find their way around a neighborhood in an optimized way. Now, what was really interesting about that was, you know, the nearest neighbor algorithm is really the basis of most of the sat navigation type technology that we still rely on today in Google Maps and TomTom and things in our cars. It's not changed that much. It's just got much, much better and more accurate. But the concept of it is, you know, decades old. In the end of the 60s, there was a chatbot created by a guy whose name I forget, Eliza, and it was really designed to try and see if it could beat the Turing test, so it could, you know, spoof people into thinking it was a person. Did relatively well. But the idea of chatbots, that everybody is kind of, you know, clients and developers and designers and brand people and advertising people are all kind of fetishizing over right now, is as old as, you know, the Beatles. Like, it's been around for a long, long time. Backpropagation is the algorithm that really drives neural networks to learn. So the machine learning algorithm, if you like, very basic machine learning algorithm. And that was end of the 60s, early 70s. Then we get this break. We get this really fascinating break around the sort of 70s and 80s called the AI winter. And that was because funding really dried up. No one could see the benefit of machines that could do smarter things. There wasn't enough processing power. Machines were fairly large and quite expensive, and so the funding was cut. And nothing very much happened until the mid 80s, when Mercedes built the first censored up self-driving car. And again, I think what I find really fascinating about that is people are talking about self-driving cars now as if it's a new concept. They had the same problem in the 80s with the self-driving car that we have right now, as it kept kind of killing stuff, kept running over, people and chickens and running into fences and things like that. One of the ways that modern car manufacturers are getting around this training problem are those little capture things that you see on websites. When you try and log on a website and it says, we just want to make sure you're a human, and you have to click on the traffic lights and the palm trees and the, choose the bicycles or click on the motorbikes or whatever, select them. What you're actually doing is helping businesses like Uber and Tesla train their self-driving car algorithms. You're spotting logical objects and then you're reinforcing the machine. Not many people know that. But the self-driving car is a really interesting case study that's worth going back and looking at as well. Gary Kasparov plays an IBM machine called Deep Blue in the 1996, was about when I got fascinated in the area. Really interesting, wasn't particularly great. It's kind of a game, it's just a rules-based game. Beat Kasparov, which was fairly controversial at the time. And then in 2007-ish, IBM Watson, the second kind of smart machine that IBM really built, Watson, for its time, won the game show of Jeopardy in the US, which was kind of a big deal. What was kind of a big deal about that at the time is, I think it was less that it did something really, really clever. It was that it did it on TV. So what happened right then is a lot of people who were watching that in America thought, oh my God, like the machines are coming, and it was all very kind of PR for IBM, and it was a big case study. But I think at about that time, people started to think about all the stuff that had happened in the previous kind of 60 odd years with a little bit more zeitgeist, which became kind of more relevant, right? Sorry, somebody talk. I didn't hear that. And I'm going to talk about DeepMind and OpenAI just in a minute. John McCarthy. So what's really interesting about what's happened in the last couple of months is that John McCarthy, and I've got some case studies. I'm going to go through some case studies off the kind of boring slides. In the paper from the 50s, John McCarthy and the team had really broken things down into these 7 pillars. If a machine could do these 7 things, then it would be deemed to be proper, true artificial intelligence. It would be a machine that could do things that ordinarily people were trained to do, or human ingenuity would have us do. We can now do all of those 7 things. And we have algorithms, and we have businesses. Amazon is a great example of a business that can go from the top of that stack all the way through and have a series of algorithms or a series of RPAs, robotic process automations, or whatever, that goes from the top to the bottom. So this is really the first time in human history that we can say we are in a time of artificial intelligence, because we have machines that can do the 7 things that John McCarthy deemed to be necessary in order for a machine to think. Pretty scary, pretty exciting, kind of interesting. And the other thing that's going on right now, and I'm going to clip through these slides, I don't want to bore you with all the words. I want to get some cool video stuff. We really look at the area of AI. So as consultants and designers and people in the industry of actual AI, we talk about continuous intelligence and then applied intelligence. So continuous intelligence is what we use as a discipline to, inform AI, which then informs the continued intelligence. So A machine is not proper AI until it's self-learning. It's self-fulfilling. You take your hands off the wheel, you go have a cup of coffee, and it's doing something for you on your behalf. But it doesn't stop. It just continues and on and on and so on and so forth. So CIAI is a term that's worth just kind of putting away in your locker and thinking about a little bit. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. So the other reason that we hit Jeopardy, IBM Watson and Jeopardy, were three big global events. Social media was invented in 2003, the social media that we take for granted now. Facebook launched, then the iPhone launched in 2008, and then in iPhone was 2006, and then in 2008 was the financial crash. Now, the reason social media is relevant is because it started generating a staggering amount of data, human data. So it started to generate a staggering amount of biometric, psychometric, behavioral data, like all the really cynical stuff, all the stuff that we generate that a machine needs to use in order to be relevant, right? The other thing that Facebook did, interestingly, in its first couple of years, was invest heavily in Chinese selfie stick companies. Now, the reason it was investing in Chinese selfie stick companies is because for machine vision algorithms to work exponentially, you need multiple faces in a photo. So if you start selling lots and lots of selfie sticks, more people appear in the photos that are uploaded to Facebook. So that's why they did that. The iPhone was obviously the big first smartphone that then started scraping like staggering amounts of data, telematic, behavioral, biometric, all the rest of it. So that was the first big bloat of the data needed to kickstart the current thing that we're going through right now. And the reason the financial crash is relevant is because a huge amount of algorithmic programmers and coders lost their jobs in financial service companies, and then went off to Silicon Valley and were employed for similar amounts of money to build social networks and apps and car hailing services and so on and so forth. So those two things combined were really the tipping point. Now, there's one case study that I'm going to just clip through real quick. I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to talk about GPT and OpenAI and some other great ones. The one I would absolutely implore you all to go and look at a documentary on Netflix called AlphaGo. It's about the algorithm by DeepMind called AlphaGo, a machine called AlphaGo, who beat the world Go champion Lee Sedol in 4 games to 1. It's an incredible documentary. It's really a watershed moment that tipped us to where we are right now in generative AI. The reason it's so relevant, the reason it's so exciting is because 4 games into the match between the Go master Lee Sedol, the most incredible Go player on the planet, and AlphaGo, Lee Sedol walked out the room fairly pensively. He was followed by the documentary makers that said, "Lee, why did you walk out?" And he said the machine cheated. He said the machine had cheated and he wasn't very happy about that. And then he went in and he finished off. And when they looked at the logs, what they found out was that AlphaGo had not cheated. It had invented a move that had never been seen before. So it had been strategic. And it's the first time really that a machine has done something better than a master at their own thing, creatively speaking. So Kasparov has been beaten at chess in the 90s, but that's a fairly kind of linear game. Project 4 or 5 moves in front and you get there. AlphaGo is projecting, a couple of million moves ahead. Really amazing stuff. And then we get to OpenAI and ChatGPT, which is where we are now. Now, we were predicting, as I've already mentioned, on the hype cycle, we were predicting that stuff like GPT and large language models were probably about 10 years away, 4 or 5 years ago. So it has whipped through the expectations of even the most heady analyst and futurist and whatever. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about ChatGPT. I'm going to show you some examples. I'm not going to labor ChatGPT too much, actually. And what I want to do is go a little bit deep on some of the use cases and opportunities. But I've got some other examples. Now, the reason this one is relevant and the reason I wanted just to focus on generative AI is because obviously everyone's talking about it in businesses and outside of businesses, and there's a staggering amount of money being invested in it. Now, the other reason it's really relevant and the reason it's become zeitgeisty is because ChatGPT as a as a tool, as a business, let's think about it as a business, hit 100 million users in 2 months. Now, it took TikTok 9 months to do the same thing. And TikTok was kind of the record holder. So it's just done to TikTok in 2 months what took 9. Like, just an incredible speed to scale. Really unprecedented. Now, the numbers are fairly opaque. No one's quite sure, no one's quite sure what they mean by that. But I suspect the reason it's got there quite so quickly is because it's utility. It's not just entertainment. It doesn't just fit a young audience who go around like snapping and TikToking and stuff. It's got utility value, and it's kind of relevant to everybody. Now, there's a ton of stuff. Like, Ilesh has already gone through some of this stuff. Most of the generative AI stuff that's out there at the moment is pretty rubbish, right? It's not that good at the moment. Most of it is also powered by somebody else's API, and that's also relevant and worth thinking about. So there are about 4 companies on the planet that can do this stuff because they have enough data. Most of the other tools that are out there are being powered by companies like OpenAI. And I think that's really, really important to bear in mind. The other reason I say a lot of them are rubbish, but I draw back and say that's really fascinating, is because you've got to think about what's going on right now in the context of the first iPhone. So the first iPhone, 2006, was pretty rubbish. Like, at the time, we all thought it was brilliant, but it was pretty slow, it was pretty clunky, the UI was a bit crap, it had limited number of apps in the App Store, it did the kind of basic stuff well, but we were all really enthused and excited by it. If you think about the fact that we're on GPT, say, 4 now, in 2 or 3 years, we're going to be on version 10, and it's going to be staggeringly good. So it's pretty daft and it's pretty rubbish right now, but it's going to get really, really good really, really quickly. GPT, generative pre-trained transformer, we've already talked about this. I won't go through this. It's just, it just means that the thing has been trained on a vast data set. Now, one warning I have for you is no one's quite sure where they got that data from. And I challenge you all to go online or use ChatGPT and find out where it got its data from, to train it to do what has been done, because no one's quite sure, which is good and bad, right? You're not large enough to do this stuff yourself. What I mean by that is your businesses, you will not be able to build the next OpenAI without a staggering amount of money and a staggering amount of computer power. GPT-3, for example, 45 terabytes of data during its initial training cycle, cost them about $12 million per training cycle. So that was every time they hit the button to retrain the algorithms. $12 million of processing power. There's another Chinese model coming out, another large language model with significantly more data in there. It's only going to get good. It does mean, though, that most of you are going to be using someone else's APIs. So that's exactly what I've been doing. So I've got some examples. I've got some really interesting stuff. Feel free to unmute and just chip in if you've seen any of this stuff or you've got your own thoughts on it. But there's a really, really amazing image generating tool called Midjourney. Now, Midjourney, I've tried them all, right? So it's my job, and I'm a nerd. I've been playing with them all. Midjourney is doing something really special, like really special. It's running predominantly on Discord, which again I kind of find kind of annoying, but it does its job. Midjourney is a standalone business. Whereas things like DALL-E are from OpenAI and Stable Diffusion, I can't remember where they've come from, but they're connected to another big business. The quality is quite amazing. Now, these particular pictures and the next set of pictures I've got for you, I was feeding in lyrics from a band that I used to work with in the 90s, and they used to make some fairly obscure rock music. I started feeding in lyrics, asking for various genres of interpretation, and these are the pictures that it starts spitting out. Just phenomenal, and bang on as well. Now, I've been talking to the songwriter who wrote the original songs that I've been feeding the lyrics for into Midjourney, and he's blown away. He says it's like spot on. Here's some more that Midjourney did. The songwriter Nigel, as I've said, looked at these pictures and then literally went to me. This was kind of what was in his head when he was writing some of the music for a song called Cosmic Castaway that he wrote. in 1999. It's nothing short of miraculous, and I can't overstate that. The reason it's so impressive is these are literally generative, so these don't exist anywhere else. It's not used bunch of other pictures and comp them together. This is brand new. This is art, if you like. And again, I think what's really incredible about that is the argument that's been for so long now that machines can't be creative. And we've got to say right now that looking at some of the stuff they can. The QR code on the screen, by the way, is to the song. If you want to click it and have a listen later on, that's the song that was fed to Midjourney, or the lyrics from the song that were fed to Midjourney to generate some of these images. Now, Midjourney's also got an API, so or it's coming out later on this year, so we'll be able to use that sort of the API to really generate images within our own work, which again I find really quite staggering as a concept. And just really quickly, here's another one. There's another service out there because I think it's quite fun, called Songtel. And again, that QR code, if you want to click it on the screen and go have a listen later, is to the song Renegades by the band, written in the 1990s. And again, Nigel said he wrote that song in 99. And the machine, as Songtel takes the lyrics of songs and looks at them and says, I think this is what the songwriter meant when they were putting this together. And I sat with Nigel and we went through it, and he was like it read his mind. And the reason we picked these particular songs is we were testing this technology. We're testing it to see how good it's getting. So we picked the most obscure songs in a catalogue of about 50 songs that he's written. 50 songs. We picked the most obscure ones. We fed it in. Listen, the guy was just completely blown away. He couldn't quite believe what he was seeing in this stuff. Slightly more practical use case. OpenAI, ChatGPT, like I'm trying to use it sparingly. I'm nervous about it. It is a utility. One of the things that is really good at, though, is things like generating workshop agendas. Now, I think practically speaking, we could all use a bit of this, give us 15 minutes of time back. What's really good about tools like ChatGPT is if we take them for what they are. So it's the beginning of a journey and not the end of a journey. The other thing, is my video playing, by the way?
Yep.
Yep, great. I'm not going to run through the whole video, but the other thing I would encourage you all to do when you're using any of these generative AI tools or programming using the APIs is you've got to get really smart and learn to prompt. Now, prompt is a phrase that I think we're going to see a lot more of. I can foresee in the next 18 months, we'll see job adverts for like prompt engineers, copywriters who can effectively, tell the machines precisely what you want and get something very precise from it. If you give it slightly kind of thin briefs, you get crap back. You go a little bit deep on your brief, your prompt, it starts to go really well. Now, the other thing that's really impressive about GPT as a piece of AI is context. It knows, it's retained the context of what has been talked about previously. And so it gets better and better the more you engage in the same conversation. And when I go back to kind of 2014, when we were doing the NLP work with NatWest on the first kind of quote unquote chatbots that were being put out there, there was no context. It was like question, answer, and it was pretty clunky. So context from prompts is really special. Here's a slightly controversial one for a group of coders meeting up is at Christmas, I started to build, because I'm a nerd, and I did used to code quite well, but not as good as most of you on here. Started to build a mobile phone, very loosely speaking, because I was trying to spend less time on Twitter and do something a bit more practical. I was really interested to see, and bear in mind this is Christmas, so this was 4 months ago now, over 4 months ago. I was really interested to see how good something like GPT would be at coding. So the reason I went for Arduino and this particular type of C++ is because it's like really not complex, it's niche, really niche. And the GSM board that I bought off eBay is like notoriously bad. Like I bought like a bad board. If you go on the forums on Arduino, people complain about this thing because the code never works. So I really wanted to put GPT through its paces from a code point of view. Now, what was quite incredible, scary good, is it didn't work the first time. I asked it to try a different library, and then it worked. First time, I was receiving text messages. I could send out text messages from this like clunky pager thing that I built. It got good, I'm afraid to say, pretty quickly. When I came back in January, it did exactly the same thing in substantially less code. So again, what you can see on the screen is it's just trying different libraries. So I've asked it, you know, to try a slightly different library. It was great. I was kind of bowled away by it, and I'm not usually that impressed, or easy to impress. So we got to start using it. We got to start using ourselves with it. Now the other thing I saw a couple of weeks ago. Oh.
So there you go.
Oh, there we go.
Going from hand-drawn, beautiful art, if I do say so myself, to working website.
All right, there you go. ChatGPT has now got this functionality that will take a hand-drawn sketch and then chop it up and code it. So it's not, for my money, it's no different than kind of tools like Dreamweaver 15 or 16 years ago or longer. When you, because of the audience that we've got here today, how does that make you feel, by the way, when you see machines coding? Just call out.
I think it's personally good. Like it helps us be better coders, but then, like you say, you got to be a bit skeptical like what they produce. So you got to know your stuff before you kind of use it. Or
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean it's an interesting scenario. The coding thing I find really controversial because yeah, it's getting good. Google's entered. This one was really cool as well. So Google have just put their beta of their pre-season. I'm skipping it because the music's really annoying me. But yeah, heads up, everyone thought Microsoft and GPT were going to own this space. Google have been sitting back. They haven't been sitting back because they've been slow. They've been sitting back because they've been waiting to go second. Now, when I saw a demo the other day of the Google Suite integrations with their generative stuff, I was like blown away. It's going to be so good. Email, brief writing, presentation creating, like all the tools are there. It's looking really good. And also, I also found this one as well, which is something else that I think we're going to see a bit more of in the next couple of years, which was, I don't know if you saw that video. Let me see if I can play that again. Anyway, real world context, so AR. So we talk about virtual reality, like I'm not that convinced about VR, it hurts my eyes a little bit, but AR I think is going to be big, and we're going to see a lot of generative technology used in an AR space. So that video that played briefly then is a car changing color, and it's a demo that was created by Toyota, I think, to show how you might not need a car showroom in the future. You could just have a pair of AR glasses and you could choose a color, and generative AI would change the color of the car in a real world context. So you don't have to kind of do it in a virtual space. And then the other one that I saw, which I thought was pretty cool as well, was like generating objects. So the gaming industry are going to start doing like tons more stuff with generative AI technology. So you're going to start seeing the games, the entertainment that we're also fond of at various points becoming a lot quicker to market, a lot more endless, a lot more interactive. And again, I'm really excited about that. Like, I think everybody's kind of getting really over the top about GPT and chat. and so on and so forth. But I think some of those industries like gaming is going to be really, really exciting, like really exciting. So what? Why should we care? I'll finish off with a few things. The reason we should care is not necessarily about the automation of tasks, improved decision making, customer experience. Like those are things we've been doing for a while. It's about disrupting business models, and I think all of our jobs will be disrupted because the business models of our clients and our agencies, or whoever we work for, will be disrupted. So certain jobs may or may not go, but we will certainly all be augmented at some point. These tools will not be a one size fits all for everything. There will not be, I don't care what anybody says, it's all out there on LinkedIn at the moment. Everyone's going mad about it. There will not be one tool that rules it all. There will not be a single kind of super AI that runs all the AIs. OpenAI maybe are getting close to it. With their App Store concept, which they launched last week, which you should go and Google and look for. Now, I think what it means is that outcome-focused businesses will win big because the output, code, design, outputs are going to be taken care of generatively by quite a lot of things. We have to think about outcomes. What do we want the machines to do? What do we want to ask them to do for us? How do we want to work with them? How do we want to augment them? How do we want people to feel? So you've got to think like an outcome-focused person. I'm going to skip this. It's a bit consultancy. I'll put it on my slides. We've already talked about this one as well. The other problem with these systems is they're really not very good yet. We had an example earlier of training ChatGPT to be stupid. Like I did one as well. It was even stupider than that. Like I managed to convince it that 10 plus 10 was 25. And I reinforced it. I went through it 4 or 5 times, reinforcing that it was 25 and not 20. And by the 4th or 5th time, I know somebody else that used it. And this was at Christmas, by the way, so I think it probably fixed it by now. But I had somebody on a machine next to me ask the same question, and I taught it that it was 25. So you just got to be really careful. And we've talked about ethics a little bit. We've talked about ethics. I mean, look, the bias is something that gets talked about a lot. You got to remember all of these generative tools have been trained on some data. They are opinions embedded in maths. Like all of these things are just opinions embedded in maths and code. Privacy is going to be a big issue, and not privacy of our data, but privacy of like replicating and spoofing your data. So I've already used ChatGPT to generate registration information that was good enough to get a bank account. I was testing it in January, just really trying to push through some case studies of these ethical concerns, and I've registered for a bank account. Online safety, fairness, explainability, and transparency. So this is my conclusion. This is where I want to finish. The bear that I showed you earlier is a growler bear. Now, 10 years ago, scientists started to spot an entirely new type of bear in Alaska. And because the ice caps, because the environment had been changing, the ice caps had been melting, the polar bears had come south into Alaska and started breeding with the grizzly bears. And bred an entirely new type of bear. It's called a growler or a grizzly bear, depends who you speak to. Totally new. It's the fusion of 2 species. Now, Lee Sedol, when he was beaten by the machine, he went away and then he came back and he said, do you know what? We've got to live with this now. We've got to adapt and be part of it now. We've got to work with it. We've got to fuse ourselves with this technology and become better. We've got to use it as a tool to make ourselves better. In effect, we've got to become the grizzly bear, the growler bear, because we've seen the environment change, we've seen our roles changed, and we're going to see the fusion of us and machines in a way that, you know, is not been seen before, except in Alaska, when 2 types of bears started breeding and new breeds started to emerge. So that, my friends, is why I wanted to start with the bear. And I'm going to stop there so that you can all ask some questions and take a breather. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks, Pete. Very informative. So just going to have a look through the chat. So I've got one thing from Tim. He was obviously interested with the Microsoft versus Google horse trading in the area. I'm curious how it plays out, but Do you have any sort of views on this on your side,
Yeah.
from your side?
Yeah, definitely. The thing to remember about Microsoft and Google is they have two different, very different business models. Google's primary source of income is advertising. And so they will give a staggering amount away for free, but it won't be free. The cost will be your data to target things better at you. Whereas Microsoft, you know, they're going to embed it in that. ChatGPT may not be there in 6 months' time. I don't know. It might be entirely embedded in Microsoft Office, which people are going to be paying a premium for, which we all do through our businesses, right? So Microsoft is a B2B business. Google is a B2C business. Different business models, different outcomes, same tools.
Great. Looking through now, is any good open source LLM?
There's a few. I'll put them. I'll send them to you. Yeah, there's a few I've seen. I think there's one called Pito or something. I'll send it to you. There are some really good things emerging on GitHub, which I have seen. But again, I think you have to just be aware of the fact that if you're using an open source LLM or any kind of API, thousands of other people are as well. So, you know, you're not doing anything unique, and also you could all be polluting the same gene pool. But yeah, there are a few.
Nice. Another question, is there anything being done with using AI to authenticate actual human creations versus AI creations?
Yes. And that's one of the things that I saw in January, which I love. So AI to spot AI, which is like the proverbial snake eating its own tail. Yes, there are tools emerging specifically to look for images. There's also a paper that's been written encouraging the AI platforms to digitally watermark images that have been generated so that they can be spotted. So Getty and people like that are kind of pioneering this. Interestingly, if I go way back to when I had the job with the music startup in 2009, we could not release any music onto the internet before we'd spent like massive amounts of money in computing power encoding a watermark in every single one of the tracks that we were given by the record labels so that they could be traceable. And the same thing is being talked about right now. Whether or not these freebie platforms will adopt it, we don't know. But yeah, there's a lot going on in that space to try and stop the copyright issues.
Yeah, and additionally, there's also cases where you're trying to write an essay and submit that, but then that's going to be checked to see if it's got AI content inside it as well. So yeah, there's lots of things out there.
I think I've been doing this for long enough now, like not to sound like an idiot, but like I can spot GPT generated content. I can spot it. And I'm not an algorithm. Like it does really weird stuff. It uses a lot of synonyms. It uses like a lot of enthusiastic language. It repeats itself. But I reckon in 12 months' time, I won't be able to spot a GPT generated article.
So we've got here, Neil Patel says that Google can tell the difference between natural and AI generated text on websites. Is that true, or just someone being paranoid about the business?
I imagine Google could probably tell you quite a lot. They could probably tell you what you have for breakfast this morning as well. So yeah, if it's linked to Google, Microsoft, Facebook, or yeah, those three, is probably true. I'm very cynical about all this stuff, but yeah, just assume it's true.
Cool. I think that's the end of the questions. So thank you, Pete, and
That's
thank
all right.
you, everyone else. So you get ready for you just whenever you are ready yourself.
Hello.
Hey.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Perfect. So let me share my window. Yep. I think that it's all look good.
Yes, yeah, we can see it, yeah.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. So still learning a lot from the evangelists all around the world. So today I'm going to talk a little bit more practical side of AI as I'm integrating the AI into my daily workflow a lot. So I will show you how we can use AI-based tools to make you a little bit more productive, but not just listing some of the sites from Futurepedia and then showing the names to you. Instead of this, I have recorded some videos to you and then helping you to enable how you can create all those stuff. So I'm kind of a lazy person, so that's why I have prepared this presentation at the last 2 hours by using AI heavily to create such a story on top of it. So briefly, let me introduce a little bit about myself. I'm living in Lisbon, so I'm 32 years old. I have founded 2 companies and right now running 2 of them, mostly Whoop.com. I was mostly in SEO and content marketing business before, but right now trying to understand the new world of AI and helping the businesses and the friends to survive from all those changes. So specifically, as I have mentioned, all the presentation is created by AI. So there are some tools like tom.app. It will be helpful for you to understand how things are just working. So if you mind, you can just add whatever you want. You can just add cyberpunk themed new pictures, etc., this kind of stuff. So it will be easier to use and create presentations in an easier way. So as you can see, it's just a generated AI, and then you can just integrate into your presentation as I'm just doing right now. So in this presentation, I have said that all the presentation generated by AI, but of course I have used a great prompt to make this thing happen. But at first, I just want to show you what is the feature of AI and how we will communicate with AI, specifically by starting with talking with Whisper. So
this is the Micro Machine Man present.
Is the sound open and access? Can you
Presenting the
hear
most
the
midget miniature
sound
motorcade of Micro Machine. Each one has dramatic
Yeah, we
details,
can hear
circuit turns, precision paint jobs, plus incredible Micro Machine pocket playsets. There's a police station, fire
this
station,
is
restaurant,
a
service station, and more. Perfect pocket
test
portables to take
sound
any place. And there are many
track
miniature playsets.
for understanding the accuracy of sound to text dictation engines.
Playsets to play with, and each one comes with its own special edition
as
Micro
you can
Machine
see,
vehicle and fun,
it's
fantastic
very
features that
fast.
miraculously move. Raise the boat lift at the airport marina, man the gun turret at the army base, clean your car at the car wash, raise the toll bridge, and these playsets.
And the accuracy of OpenAI is nearly more than 90% for even though the low quality sounds and fast sounds like this example. So you can just take a look. It's even working for K-pop. So in this case, I have just started by prompting a little bit more about my story today until the 2 or 3 hours before this event. So I have just recorded my voice and say to AI what I want to talk in this session. So I've said that I'll briefly talk a little bit about myself and what am I doing right now. And there are some problematic translations too, but it's just maybe less than 5%. And I'm talking about what kind of things I'm using right now and how AI will change the feature. And then adding this in a brainstorming session, I felt out my thoughts on this topic. I want to talk about the event on artificial intelligence below and asked AI to create 20 slides by using my raw thoughts. So as you can see, there are lots of slides with cool titles and all the other descriptions and examples. So I have asked that changing a format a little bit to get more information, and then things get happened. So as I have mentioned, I have used AI to create all those presentations, but the source are just my thoughts. But I haven't spent for hours to create such a presentation. So when you just check the presentation creation part, so I have just used a tone map, and then it has an initial prompting part where I'm just copying and pasting what AI is saying to me, and it understands the text, and then rewriting text by using the GPT 3.5 and also DALL-E 2. And at the end of the day, I have a brief summary of my text on the left, and on the right, you can easily see that it generates some sort of image by using my thoughts as a source of the prompt to the DALL-E. So as you can see, I did something, and it takes mostly 8 or 9 minutes. And after the end of the presentation, I think that you won't believe that I have completed all those ideas from point 0 to 100 in just 20 minutes. So it's totally weird for me too. So today I will talk a little bit more about how I'm doing this. So specifically to record my voice and send this voice to OpenAI to transcribe by using the Whisper, as I have mentioned and showed the example. And the Whisper helps me to return some sort of text. And this text doesn't have to be English. You can still speak in Turkish or any other language, and it will directly understand you. For example, I have recorded the last 10 sentences. So as you can see in here, it's just working in a great way. And also if I'm just using this in another language, merhaba arkadaşlar, şu anda Türkçe konuşuyorum. And in this case, I'm not inputting AI with any source of information, but it understands that I'm speaking Turkish. I think somehow it's becoming more revolutionary to me to see that much dictation. And, you know, we have seen this feature on Apple, on Google for many years, at least for 10 years. It's not something new, but the accuracy where I can see in Whisper is something I think at least 10x better than any other one. So that's why the most important thing I am using AI in my life is just having a hotkey to record my voice with Better Touch tool by using some bash scripts and then sending to the OpenAI and getting the text. For example, if some of my friends are just coming up with a long WhatsApp messages, okay, I'm just recording the voice, saying something, and then stopping the voice, and the transcription is completed in 5 seconds, and I'm just passing the text to my friend, which is revolutionary for me because I'm communicating with a lot of people. Specifically, I'm managing directly 20 people, and in my previous company, I have 60 people. So they're asking questions, I need to communicate with them, and it's too much communication, and I can't manage that much communication by directly typing to the keyboard. So it's such a cool alternative. As you can see, all the images are still generated by DALL-E, and then all the other stuff are generated by GPT-4 or 3.5. And then you can just assign all those stuff into your short keys, and using those shortcuts will make you definitely better than ever when it comes to communicate with the people. So it doesn't have to be just a communication layer. Instead of this, I can easily say that if I have some idea, for example, if I'm just having a new startup idea, like I mentioned to the friend, I'm just recording my voice, sending to AI, getting transcription, and I can easily ask to OpenAI for summarizing my idea or reorganize this as a Notion document in a Markdown format, whatever you want to do. It's not just a communication layer, it's also streaming your brain into the microphone, and then you will easily get a very well structured text where you can use with your prompts to make use of AI more useful for you. And I have also implemented in many different perspectives, not only for just communicating through the email, but also for sending the emails to the people. For example, it is kind of a spam email comes to me, but following up a lot for software engineer hiring process. So in this case, I'm saying to Sarah, and let me just open the voice.
Don't send any email to us in a kind way.
And I'm saying that please don't, we are not hiring any software engineers yet, and please don't send any email to us, but make this in a kind way. You know how hard it is to saying things in kind way. So I'm just directly saying this to AI. And in this case, I'm just simulating this through the ChatGPT to help you to understand how it works. Actually, it is just embedded on top of my keyboard so that, as you can see in here, it gets the message at first, and then my prompt, and then the message is generated. And what it's saying is that, hi, Sarah, I hope this email finds you. Thank you for following up. However, at the moment, we are not looking for any software engineers yet. So I'm just not making myself rude and answering to the email in such a kind way, but just saying some rude words to AI. And the AI is helping me to make this more kind and more understandable for Sarah for not breaking her valuable heart. So in this case, there are endless possibilities by combining AI and your own voice. And for the specifically people like me who are living outside of UK or US, our mother language isn't just English. So in this case, I have another thing, which is directly translating text to English to Turkish or Turkish to English. To be honest, AI makes me lazy. I have confidence enough to send emails in English, but if you are just coming from any other mother language, you know that feeling, speaking in your own mother language in an easier way, and then translating this by DeepL, and then asking AI to rewrite the message, if you mind. So, because, you know, if you are talking to someone, but writing to someone has different languages and tones. So that in this case, I have another shortcut, which is helping me to send the prompts to GPT-3 and then returns to my own text input, which makes things a lot easier so that I can just say that, extend this sentence to me, for example, and then when I'm just sending the shortcut, it gets the response from GPT and then pasting here, and then it can continue to essay or any email that I'm writing right now. I'm just adding a single sentence, triggering the shortcut. So this kind of things makes my life a lot easier. Even though I'm not coder, I have coded them with help of ChatGPT too. So maybe in the near future, I will just release this as an app. If you mind, just I can give you for free for exchange of any feedback. It will be maybe the name of ThinkBuddy on very soon. So just follow me through the Twitter or send me a line through the email. So I will be happy to share a free access to you and to hear just the feedback from your end. So like I mentioned, there are lots of limited opportunities to automate your stuff by using AI, but I always want to make them easy to use. So I want to mention that Replicate is a great website where you can just spend $1 to use lots of generative AI, from audio generator to style transfer to text to image or image to text, lots of stuff. So even though the new stuff like the video generation by prompt, you can just check the latest advancements of AI. And for example, cartoonify video, you can just give some videos and it helps you to cartoonify. It's very easy. You can just click and then upload any video and it will help you to do whatever you want, because there are lots of different presets that you can use in here. It's not just limited by video. There are lots of interesting things, including the Whisper or any other popular ones like Stable Diffusion. You can use in here by the web UI, or you can integrate them into your API. So that's why if you want to follow the latest advancements of AI in a practical ways, so I can directly recommend you to work a little bit on Replicate. And also the second site I want to mention is that the Featurepedia, which is a great website. I love this website a lot because it categorizes the websites in a very effective way. For example, before creating this presentation, I didn't know that there is something called Tom.ai, and then I come here and then say that presentations. So how can I create a presentation in a very short time and make it so efficient? And then I found the Tom in here, and there are lots of different alternatives, and you can see them and check the how people are favoriting all those tools. As the Tom is the most favorite one, I have used this one and it helps me a lot. So following the Featurepedia is a great thing because the AI, I think I'm not very optimistic about the future of AI because AI is stealing our jobs from our hands because most of us are not paying a lot of attention to the feature and to the AI. And I think that if we don't adapt ourselves to the feature will not help us to live longer from financial perspective. That's the reason we need to be using all those tools and prepare ourselves to use them very effectively. And the last thing is that the banana.dev, which is a great website specifically for developers. Running LLM might be a little bit costly. If you want to create your own ChatGPT, they have lots of alternatives like Alpaca, Bloom. Some of them are created by Google. Some of them are created by Stanford. Lots of different modules. Some of them specifically for text summarization. Some of them are just like Whisper. Some of them are just like Whisper, but with speaker diarization, which helps you to identify the speakers. For example, if you just want to get the meeting records and creating the summaries so that instead of buying an expensive NVIDIA GPU for your servers or renting any expensive servers with GPU, it helps you serverless. You are only paying for every single second you are using the APIs. So I think it's very useful. You're just sending the YouTube URL, for example, and saying the language and if possible, saying how many speakers over there. And it helps you to find out which speaker is saying which thing. So just get into the banana.dev and it will help you to come up with more and more ideas. So, and I think that there will be, if you are just a developer and looking for an innovative idea, I think that there isn't so much YouTube subtitle generators in this era, and you may maybe use just the speaker diarization of Banana, and you can easily integrate a service where you can charging people through Stripe and then transcribe the video through Whisper, get the subtitle, and translate to maybe 30 different languages, and then charge people for $5 for 5 minutes video. So everyone may eager to buy such a thing. So if you imagine that, how to do this kind of thing before the AI revolution, before the GPT APIs, before the Whisper, it is something that you need to have 100 engineers in your team. Those are very experienced senior developers. So you can just do this thing with your own resources in an easier way. And also you can still do this without any coding know-how, I think. The Cursor, which is a new tool, I love it a lot. I have used today. For example, I just want to connect some APIs to my data sources, and I can just give some brief information to the AI and change this thing and use this thing. And then I'm just sending the request, and it will find which areas to change. For the developers, I think it's very useful because it shows you where needs to be changed in the code. For example, I'm asking that, okay, don't get the data for one time, just ask the data to get for within a for loop for last 90 days. So it's just directly changing the code and then help me to make iteration, and I can even combine this code by adding some big features like integrate this data to Google Analytics data with Search Console, which is crazy and such a big project. So it gives me an API, and then I can connect between of them. I know that the code generated by AI is not working at the first time, but if you iterate to talk with AI and run the code and get the error and send to AI and iterate a little bit more and more, I think that you can still do this. And if you are a developer, I think it's 10x easier for you, because you can easily spot the issues and the bugs by just checking the code instead of writing this for long hours. So the world is changing so fast, so that to be honest, I feel so stressful and trying to find whatever I can read for AI related stuff, specifically for the feature, what kind of things are waiting us, so that you should definitely keep your eye on, and then try to use AI every day as much as you can do to make this thing such an habit. And at last, I just want to show how you can use the AI effectively for your own Google Sheet thing in just my 5 minutes. So, which is generated by a company which is called Telerian. You can just visit them, gpt4work.com. So they are helping you to generate some new formulas inside of your Google Sheet. So by using those formulas, let me just zoom in a little bit to you. So you can just ask anything to your AI, for example, how much calories, and then you can just give peers as an argument. So it helps you to get the calories of each fruit in easier way. So instead of just asking to ChatGPT again and again and again, you can use such a way to create stuff like this. Or, for example, if I'm just saying that generate an article outline for this topic, and gives the orange for creating articles, maybe the outline about the planting an orange tree, maybe, yes, and health benefits of orange. If you use such a thing, maybe you can just say that follow the given outline to write an article, and then use just this thing, and then it will directly use the outline you have just generated about the health benefits of oranges, and then it will just follow the introduction, nutritional value, health benefits, until to the conclusion to generate an article for you. I believe that you can just get the workaround for generating the content by using such ways, instead of just asking the ChatGPT about write an article about oranges. Instead of this, you can just generate lots of outline about this, and you can also create 4 different outlines and ask AI to mix those 3 outlines to generate a more comprehensive outline, for example. So in this case, it means that it will just read all those 3 outlines to conclude and generate a better outline, which means that we are triggering AI to generate more and more comprehensive outline, as you can see in here. So there are unlimited opportunities in Google Sheets. So at last, I will just show you single thing, and which is a very cool formula, which is called GPT fill. You are just giving an examples to AI. Like if I'm saying fruits and apples to you, you will understand the calories. And then let me just use it, GPT fill. And then I'm choosing the examples, and I'm choosing some inputs. So when I'm just sending this data to AI, and GPT fill formula helps me to match all those answers, and by just saying the calories of apple, and I can easily see the other calories of the fruits showed in here. So if you are just saying that list at least 50 fruits, or instead of this like vegetables, for example, in this case, it will help you to generate the calories of those vegetables. All things are very easy to implement, and you can just integrate them directly in your own working routine. So that's all about my end. Thank you for listening. So it was a little bit interactive training, and I hope that you enjoyed this thing. So I will continue to create new apps, new products, and lots of different things about AI, because it's satisfying me a lot, because it makes me more productive in less time, which is so exciting. And this is what I'm dreaming for years. So if you have such a similar dream, just drop a line and share your automation, or follow me through the Twitter to get the latest things, what I'm doing about the AI. Yep. Any question?
Yeah, thank you. Very good presentation. I'm just going to flick through to look at some of the questions. One was more just, yeah, like almost a question from Pete was how good it, especially when you're looking at Whisper, how good it is with nuances and local sort of like, differences. So for example, football in UK compared to soccer in US, that kind of stuff. Like how good is it with that?
By specifically for Whisper, right? This question.
Well, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think that I'm speaking the Turkish in a very clear way, so that I haven't tested with a lower quality microphone. But the real reason why I bought this microphone is increasing my whisper accuracy a little bit more, because I'm using the Whisper for at least 1 hour for a day. I'm always just like this and always talking, and then it generates me the outputs. So before doing this, I was using my MacBook's own microphone, which is not very qualified like this one, but it works great. And if you just check the test data set of OpenAI, you will easily see that there are lots of low quality sounds where they are using for benchmarking the transcription engines like Whisper. They are still doing a great job. So if you are just in a meeting and try to record the voice through your iPhone and without headphone, it can easily understand who is speaking in this call by just recording the voice through the iPhone, but the other peoples are just speaking from your headphones of MacBook. Even in this kind of low quality scenario, it works great, because I'm using this every day to summarize some of the meetings, and then all the notes are generated by AI in a very quick way. So there are lots of endless possibilities. So just be creative as much as you can do, and try to use it, because it can come up with maybe the next big thing idea to you, because there are lots of opportunities for entrepreneurs, makers right now, because the world is on the equal on the equal line right now. For AI, we can reach all those APIs like Microsoft, like Google, like Meta. It's not something possible before. We know that Google was working on LLMs for many years, but they never shared with us like OpenAI did right now. So I think that is a great opportunity for all of us.
Yeah, awesome. I've got one question. Is using all of this voice capabilities to kind of reply back to an email or answer somebody's questions because you're busy. Do you find like you have to check through those responses because obviously you're busy? You got one tool to kind of sort something out, but now do you have to kind of like go through and check it again?
That's a great question. So yeah, it makes me a little bit nervous, specifically when I'm just pronouncing the brand names like SEMrush, but it is SEMrush. The AI may not understand the context directly, but the interesting thing about the Whisper's research paper is that Whisper is evaluating your voice as a single record, not just like a live transcription, which we have seen in Apple or Google for years. Thankfully, for this part, will help Whisper to understand the most of the context. If I'm talking about SEO and content marketing, and I'm saying SEMrush, it's not saying that SEM, come and rush. It's not something like this. I'm talking about SEO, and SEM rush is a relevant term so that it can understand easily what the context is all about. And also in my daily work, I speak a lot of Turkish and using lots of English words like OpenAI, Whisper, etc. In Apple, the dictation is just failing every single time, and it makes me crazy when I'm just switching from my MacBook to iPhone. At the evening time, when I'm answering something, the dictation is just 10x less accuracy. So that's the reason it works great, but be careful to check it out first. I have tried GPT-4 to find out the problems of dictated text to spot the problems, but it's not working in a great way. So, but if you are just trying to improve the accuracy, just get the text from Whisper, ask to GPT-4 to spot the issues and fix inside of the transcription according to the flow of the information. It means that it can understand and fix the problems.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, no, it's really good.
That's a good question. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Any other questions from anybody?
Yep.
If not, we could probably end it there. I think I just want to thank everyone who's attended, all the speakers on there, and very, special presentations out there. And what I'll reach out to is for both the presentations out there, see if we can get some shareable links so we can post them onto the videos as well. And it might be good to kind of share some sort of social media stuff from the guys as well. Yeah, so thank you very much, and have the nice rest of the day or evening wherever you are, and speak to you soon. The recording will be out soon at some point in a couple of days, but yeah, thanks everyone.
That's
Take care.
perfect. Thank you, Ilesh, for opportunity.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.